Okay, good evening. The Planning Commission hearing for January 27th, 2014 is called to order. Are there any public comments regarding items that are not on the agenda tonight?
I don't have any submitted.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll proceed with the first item on the agenda is PC 1405, ZC 13-02, zone change adjacent to Woodlawn Avenue.
Go ahead and read
Go ahead and read that. Okay. We have two public hearings tonight, and I'll be reading the quasi-judicial hearing procedures, and they will apply to both of the hearings tonight. For the public hearings tonight on the land use applications that are scheduled, a staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria that are contained in their staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Commission will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure will follow the steps that are shown on the chart on the wall. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. You should fill out your address on the card so the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for their oral testimony, excuse me, if a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to the staff, they will not be included in the record. Anyone wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Planning Commission makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issues precludes any action for damages in circuit court. And we will now open the record for PC 1405, ZC 1302. Does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare? Has any commissioner visited the site? And for the record, if you visited the site, explain what your visit entailed.
A visit entailed? I think, Tony, this is a continued public hearing, am I correct? And so my I did visit the site, but I said that last time, and I was
Yeah.
there to look at what was going on.
Not I.
I've been by the site before.
Yeah, so have I.
And as I stated last time, I'm familiar with the area, and I've driven down that street in the past, but not specifically related to this case. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the commissioners on their statements? Okay. Seeing none, we'll proceed then with the commission report.
Thank you, Chair Kidwell, evening commissioners. At our last Planning Commission meeting on January 13th, you heard the staff report and applicant's presentation and took citizen comments for the proposed zone change from R10 to R8 on Woodlawn Avenue. It's planning file ZC 13-02. After that hearing, it was continued to tonight's hearing for either a decision where the applicant would be amending their application or we would be moving forward. The applicant has requested that they have the opportunity to amend and provide additional information and revise their application request from a zone change from R10 to R8 rather than R6. As part of that request, the applicant has requested a continuance until March 10th, 2014, an extension of the 120-day timeline to issue a decision by the city, which provides sufficient time to renotice the application and revise the staff report. So we are, if there are any other questions, we are requesting that the commission continue the public hearing with the record open to the date certain of March 10th, 2014 for their next planning commission meeting.
I would make that motion that we continue this application until March 10th,
I second it.
leaving the record open.
I second it.
Just one question. Do you guys have enough time with the 120-day continuance to
To accommodate? Yes, we do.
to accommodate the county and write the staff report up and everything?
Yes, we do.
Great.
Is there any public comment on this application?
I have not received any public comment. If anyone in the audience would like to speak concerning the Woodlawn zone change request?
If it's being held open, they can still comment later.
Certainly. Both written and oral testimony.
Nobody's here from the Woodlawn? No Woodlawn? Nope. Oh, you guys want to say anything?
You're going to vote on the continuance.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, call for the question.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, Commissioner Espy,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney,
Aye.
Commissioner Guile,
Aye.
Commissioner McGriff,
Aye.
Chair Kidwell.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next planning commission meeting on this issue will be March 10th, 2014.
Did the lights just do something? Oh. 'cause
Yeah, they're
first
playing
it-
tricks with my
First it was
eyes.
just really bright, and I thought, oh my God, we're
I thought
on
this was last call.
candid camera or something there, and then it got dim. I thought I was, being interrogated there.
Okay, excuse me. The next item on our agenda is PC 14-003 and ZC 1303, a zone change from R10 single-family dwelling to R6 single-family dwelling district.
You want to just go through the ex parte disclosures now? And
We just had new folks walk in.
Yeah.
We need to read again?
Yep.
Oh, how fun.
While you do that, I'm going to get some water.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and do that.
Okay, well,
Can you do the Cliff Notes version? Just refer to the chart.
We could be doing this all night, couldn't we? People
No.
walking in and,
I don't think
So
so.
that's the beginning of the hearing.
oh,
Yeah.
We will
Sorry.
read the script and procedures again for the sake of those who've joined us one more time. PC 1403 and ZC 1303. We have a public hearing tonight on the land use application, and staff report has been prepared for this application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the city will follow, the commission will follow, is set forth in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart on the wall. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. You should fill out your card, your address on the card, so the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to the staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Planning Commission makes a decision in which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes any action for damages in court. We will now open the record for this file. Does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare? And has any commissioner visited the site?
Not I.
Nope.
I did
I
visit.
did this afternoon.
Did go by.
And I have not visited the site. We will now proceed with the staff report.
Thank you,
Does
Chair.
anyone have any questions about those disclosures? Sorry. All right, go ahead, Pete.
Thank you, Chair Kidwell, and good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Peter Walter. I'm Associate Planner with the Planning Division. File number for the application is ZC 13-03. It's a request for a zone change from R10 to R6, Single Family Dwelling District. The applicant is Venture Properties Incorporated. The owners are the Johnson Family Joint Trust, the Tallstrip Loving Trust, Edwin and Retha Tolstrup, and the representative is AKS Engineering and Forestry. All of the properties are within the Oregon City limits, and the properties that have an address are 19584 Central Point Road, and there are 3 tax lots that do not have addresses, and 19882 White Lane. There are 5 tax lots in the application, as shown on this map. Tax lots 1003, tax lots 1701, tax lots 1503, 1593, and 1600. This is an aerial photograph of the property. The parcels to the north are located abutting Central Point Road, and you'll see that there's a Christmas tree farm on those 2 parcels. Parcels to the south abut 2 of those abut White Lane. And the 3 tax lots which abut White Lane, approximately 9.1 acres of those. So I just wanted to kind of give you the lay of the land here. The tax map shows that there's a 125-foot wide PGE easement running approximately 700 feet east to west across that parcel. So in total, it's approximately 18 acres. No development is proposed at this time. The amount of developable area depends on the extent of the public easements, any right-of-way dedications, the stream buffers that may be associated with the application when the land division is proposed in the future. And the assumption for the purposes of the traffic impact analysis in this application was that approximately 70% of the site is developable. And that is a fairly standard percentage, but that may change. It may be higher or lower in the future when an application is proposed. So I'll keep showing you maps from time to time when I'm referring to the things in the report. The zoning map for the site here we have is currently zoned R10, which is 10,000 square foot lot minimum if it's subdivided. It's surrounded by other low density residential zoning. To the north you have, well, northwest, you have a parcel that's zoned R8, and to the southwest you have the Payson Farms subdivision, which is zoned R8. That was an old planned development. Comprehensive plan map, which is the long-range land use map for the area, shows the entirety of the area surrounding is low-density residential, and no comprehensive plan change is proposed. As I mentioned, we have so the approval criteria for a zone change are the zone change and amendment criteria in Chapter 17.68, the administration chapter in 1750, and the applicable standards of the underlying zone districts, R10 and R6. So the zone change must be consistent with the comprehensive plan. This is the primary document by which we evaluate zoning changes and changes to the land use designations, if that is the case. Furthermore, they must show adequate public facilities and services prior to a certificate of occupancy for any buildings on the site. The zone change must be consistent with the existing or planned function and capacity and level of service of the transportation system, which means we evaluate it against the city's transportation system plan and also against the statewide transportation planning rule when a zone change is proposed. And we also must address statewide planning goals if our comprehensive plan does not. And our comprehensive plan addresses statewide planning goals in each of its sections. So the first of the goals that we evaluate is citizen involvement, Goal 1. And the way we do this is through a combination of things. We have to ensure that citizens, neighborhood groups, and affected property owners are all involved in every phase of the comprehensive planning program, through neighborhood meetings, through providing adequate mailed public notice, through posting of signs on the property, through noticing to the neighborhood associations and the CIC, posting in the paper, in the newspaper, in this case the Clackamas Review, Oregon City News. Also, we put our applications on the city website under the Planning Division Applications section, and there's the opportunity for comment at the public hearings. The next goal that we evaluate is land use, and the two that I talk about in the staff report in detail are Goal 2.1 and Goal 2.7. Goal 2.1 is to ensure that property that's planned for residential, commercial, office, and industrial use is used efficiently, and that land is developed following principles of sustainable development. When we're talking about a zone change here from R10 to R6, it would allow for additional dwelling units. The transportation analysis is based on 90 units versus 54 units under R10 zoning. No subdivision has been proposed. There would be further traffic analysis. But if we did a gross analysis, 90 units divided by 18 acres is 5 dwelling units per acre. once you take out the non-developable areas, the net density goes up to, could be 6 or 7 units per acre. Goal 2.7 is to maintain our comprehensive plan as the official long-range planning guide for land use development by type, density, and location. So the proposed zone change would maintain a low-density residential designation. What that means is we have 3 zoning designations that implement our low-density residential. They're R10, R8, and R6. So we consider this just a zone change, and no change to the comprehensive plan designation is proposed. We also need to look at natural resources, and we need to consider them and their contribution to our quality of life as a key community value when we're planning, evaluating, and assessing the cost of our actions. So when we're looking at natural resources, we map the ones that we know about, and we apply the natural resources overlay district, which protects any streams or wetlands or important habitat areas that have been designated as such by the city. Now, tax lot 1503 is mapped as part of the natural resource overlay district, and this slide shows the extent of the city's mapped stream on that property, and the applicant has submitted a natural resource review. We're not commenting on that review at this time because it's not a development application with a site-specific lot layout, but that will be part of any consideration when a subdivision is proposed. I just wanted to show you where that current adopted map buffer is. Goal 6 is to quote, preserve quality of air, water, and resources, and promote land use patterns that reduce the need for distance travel by single occupancy vehicles and increase opportunities for walking, biking, or transit to destinations such as places of employment, shopping, and education. The zone change would allow additional dwelling units for a more compact development pattern near a collector road. There are no commercial facilities within walking distance of this site. Development of the lots on Central Point Road would require dedication of property sufficient to provide a bicycle lane on that side of the street. And sidewalks, street trees, and maximum block lengths are just some of the dimensional standards that apply to subdivision review when we're looking those in the future, so that we get better connectivity for bicycles and pedestrians, whether the site is zoned R10, R8, R6, R35, or anything. Goal 10 is our housing goal, and in line with state housing goals, we need to maintain the existing residential housing stock in the city by maintaining comprehensive plan and zoning designations where appropriate. The basic land use designation for the site would be maintained as low-density residential. And further into that goal, we get another goal, Goal 10.1.3, which is important, which states that we need to designate residential land for a balanced variety of densities and types of housing, such as single-family attached and detached, and a range of multifamily densities and types, including mixed-use development. Now, this site's designated for low-density, single-family detached development, and that will not change. You may have seen the statistic from a previous zone change application where we looked at the amount of land in our low-density residential designation throughout the city, and 63% of our residential land is within the R10 and R8 districts. So the zone change would allow a greater variety of densities and lot sizes in the city. Goal 11 is public facilities. So we need to be sure to serve the health, safety, education, welfare, and recreational needs of all Oregon City residents through planning and provision of adequate public facilities. We do this through collaborating with our engineering department, looking at availability of sewer, water, stormwater connections on the site, and developers are required to provide those connections in the right-of-way when they propose new development, and they need to show that those facilities are adequate or provide upsizing for those facilities when a development's proposed. They also pay system development charges for transportation, parks, bicycle, pedestrian, storm, and sewer when a building permit is paid for. Policy 11.1.4 is to support the development of underdeveloped or vacant buildable land within the city where public facilities and services are available or can be provided, and where land use compatibility can be found relative to the environment, zoning, and comprehensive plan goals. So all utilities are available for use upon future development of this site. And as I said, the proposed zone change will not change the low-density residential designation of the site. We also look at transportation and parks facilities in that analysis as well. The transportation in particular, when you're talking about zone changes, the analysis is required to show the net increase, what the net increase in traffic due to the zone change would be. So a traffic impact study is prepared by the applicant and verified by the city's transportation consultant. They look at all of the site-generated trips based on the Institute of Traffic Engineers manual. They look at off-site intersections that may be impacted based on our transportation system plan and the levels of service. And if they identify a problem at those intersections, they have to identify mitigation. They looked at the operations immediately adjacent to the site, Central Point Road and the site access, and McCord and Partlow Road, and those were all found to be adequate with the zone change. There was one intersection, which is the Warner Parrott Road and Central Point Road intersection north of the site, where off-site mitigation will be needed, and the recommendation there is to prohibit a left turn from northbound Central Point Road to Warner Parrott Road to assure adequate operation in the future. And the applicant's traffic engineer, I believe, is here tonight if you have questions about that. As we look at the subdivision of the land, whatever the zoning is in the future, we would be doing an additional analysis to make sure that we're still in keeping with these analyses that we are looking at. The rezoning's predicted to produce a net increase of 27 morning peak hour trips over R10 zoning, 36 p.m. peak hour trips over R10 zoning, and 342 weekday trips over R10 zoning. And those are based on ITE manual trip generations. Second component of the transportation goal is to provide walkable neighborhoods. These are desirable places to live, work, learn, and play, and therefore a key component of smart growth, and also to provide an interconnected and accessible pedestrian system that links residential areas with major pedestrian generators such as employment centers, public facilities, and recreational areas. So when we look at the subdivisions, we go into detail using Chapter 12.04 of the City Code, which is our public streets and places section, and we look at the requirements for sidewalk and street spacing based on that analysis. So I've bounced over the tops of these goals, and I'm happy to go into a little more detail on any of them. My recommendation is approval, and we do have some additional items to be entered into the record. We have this staff presentation, and we also have public comments that we received since January 21st, 2014, which consists of a letter from the Hazel Grove Westland Farms Neighborhood Association submitted by Kathy Hogan and Tom O'Brien. And that letter details the meeting that was held on October 17th, 2013, between the applicant at the Neighborhood Association meeting, and also on January 16th, 2014, when the Neighborhood Association addressed the zoning upgrade. There was a lot of discussion. One of the owners was at that meeting, and the members of the Neighborhood Association that were present at that meeting took a vote at that time with respect to the zone change application. And that's copy of that is in front of you. There's also, within that package, a letter from Mr. Tony Butker of Skellinger Way with respect to this development and the impact on the adjacent properties, on the, talks about Central Point Road, infrastructure, and various other concerns which may or may not have to do with the actual zoning criteria for this area. But if you like, I can read these into the record or allow the folks to do that.
I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
First off, I just wanted to let the lady in the red coat know there is standing room in here. If you want to come in and you can hear better. Okay. Tony, excuse me. Pete,
Yes, sir.
because I need to understand a little bit better. You were talking about the trip generations,
Yes.
and did you say they were based on R10?
Well, they
Can
do
you
a
go back to that
comparison
page?
between R10 and the R6.
Is
So-
that what that page was? It
Yeah,
went by
let
so
me go
fast I
back
didn't
there.
see.
And this is a summary statement, so the actual TIS is much more detailed.
So it says the rezoning is predicted to produce a net increase of 27 AM peak hour trips, 36
So if you want me
over
to.
R10 zoning, but I thought, what would it do if it was R6?
Yeah.
I don't see those numbers.
You're right. Well, I don't know what the numbers would be if it was R10.
I see.
So we really need.
Is that
need to-
R6?
Yeah, this is for R6.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So only 27 peak hour trips in the morning from...
Net increase from
Okay.
R10, yeah.
The other one is, I had a question I've always wondered about. On system development charges, you brought those up. Is that, does the city collect system development charges per acre, per lot? So do you get more system development charges out of R6 than you do out of an R8 or an R10?
It's per lot if it's
per lot.
single family. Yeah.
Okay, and that
Yeah.
comes in once it's been designated where they...
Right. It's based on the unit type, so if it's
Okay.
single-family detached, it's one set of single
Okay.
development, system development charges. If it's a
Okay.
multifamily, it's a different charge. If it's a duplex, it's a different charge based on an adopted methodology the city commission.
And lastly, can we go back to the map that shows the R8, the R10?
Zoning-
Was that
zoning-
right there?
zoning map?
What is the, I was looking at this, is anything down here next to the red area, is that considered R10 here that's not designated?
He's where Hazel, were you talking about
Where
Hazel
am-
Park Drive?
Yeah,
Can you see where I'm waving
Yeah,
this?
he's talking about
I'm talking
Hazel
up
Park
above.
Drive. See where
Oh,
Hazel
okay,
Park
yeah,
Drive
this
is?
is all R10 up here.
what about next over below it is?
Hazeldale Avenue, Orchard Grove.
Mostly R10. I
Yeah,
believe.
he's talking, take your cursor and go.
Yeah, take your cursor
go
over that whole
way.
area.
Yeah, I can't do
No,
that.
not there.
No.
Oh,
There,
yeah,
what is all that?
That's
What is-
all, the light yellow is R10.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is that light
The,
yellow?
yeah, this
That's eight,
orange is
these are 10.
R8. This is R6. This is R35 over in the northeastern portion of the screen.
I was
And
just
this
wondering
is
why
a-
that wasn't marked R10, but maybe it's the
Says it-
continuation of
it's
the other.
light yellow. Everything that's light yellow
Yellow.
is
I guess I
R10.
didn't notice it was like
Yeah,
yellow.
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. This is bright yellow. That's light
Okay,
yellow.
thank you.
That's-
Colors.
You're not colorblind, are you?
No.
He's having
If
eye
it's
issues.
gray, it's not in the city. I just
Yeah,
wanted
if it's
to-
gray.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to understand what that
Yeah,
area
Yeah,
was.
no worries. Mhm.
Yeah, I got a question for
Okay.
you. I think the basic issue here tonight is compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. That's it. I mean, all the other stuff is, we can address and we can solve. Does the comprehensive plan address that? And
Yeah,
what does it
there's a-
say in essence?
Goal 2.
If you look through our comprehensive plan and you look for compatibility and words like that, it's hard to find any specific goals or policies that talk about transitioning zoning within a land use, within the same land use designation. I mean, if you want to talk about dimensional standards in each of these zones, it becomes more mathematical discussion, which may be easier to discuss. You know, R6 zoning has a similar rear 20-yard setback, or sorry, 20-foot setback as a R10 zone. The setbacks are smaller in an R6 zone compared to an R10 or an R8 zone. And so the houses are going to be closer together. The front setbacks are slightly smaller, R6 versus R10. You can go You have, I think, a 10-foot front setback in the R6 zone versus a 20-foot. But we have a 20-foot garage standard for houses that are built. So the garage standard kind of dictates where houses are built to a certain extent. And until the subdivision is proposed, it's kind of hard to get a handle on the overall layout of where this would look.
These R10 sites, they're all minimum 10,000 square feet or some bigger?
Which ones? The ones
Or
that
do they average out? That's what-
they average out. Some will be larger, some will be smaller. Our zoning code allows an applicant to vary the lot sizes within a subdivision up to 20%, provided the average is 10,000. So you may be 20% larger, 20% smaller, you know.
And all of this is directed for us meeting our mandated housing.
Yeah, I mean, big picture, we have the urban growth boundary within which we have to plan for urban types of development and urban density. That's mandated not only by Metro but by the state. There's metropolitan housing rule, which talks about having 8 units per acre citywide, based on that's net. And we haven't done an analysis to know where we are in relation to that today, you know, citywide. But we can plan for new areas to be substantially in compliance and that sort of thing. If you look at the comprehensive plan, you read the narrative, and you don't just read the goals and policies, but you actually read the narrative. It talks about where the shortfall that we were at when we did the comprehensive plan update in 2003, and it recommended, coming out of that process, recommended rezoning various areas to high density and medium density, and keeping areas such as this low density, with an expectation that there were 3 zoning designations that still implement that low density residential designation. So, you know, there is an expectation that low density residential will become denser, either in the vicinity of R8 or R6, but they didn't designate these areas as medium density residential or high density residential. You know.
So, can I follow up on his comment? Because I guess part of what it sounds like, not by staff, but the is that basically when I look at the overall density for the city, I look at everything. So, for instance, where I live, the lots are much, much smaller, which balance out for the areas where their larger lots are. So if you look at the entire city as a whole, it seems to me as you get further and further towards the edge of the city limits, the lots should be larger. They should not be smaller. And the other thing is I read the traffic information, and I just find it absolutely incredulous that it's only going to cause 27 more trips. I don't I don't find that information. I can't believe that, because I can think about the average trips that people generally take, and it would seem to me, because, you know, as it says in the report, there's no commercial, so people are going to be going in and out. You know, oh, I went to Fred Meyer, or I forgot this. Oh, I'm going to go back. Oh, I mean, I know it happens to me all the time, and it's just, so I'm not really, and I'll ask the applicant that. I just don't find the ITE manual to be credible, and that information that 27
That's why I asked.
27 trips.
Was that during the AM peak hour? So I think when the transportation, when their applicant comes up, it may be an opportunity to ask those questions
Sure.
about the peak hour versus the total trips over the duration of the day.
Right.
I guess, just real quick, if I could get back to Commissioner Mahoney's question, and when you look at the comprehensive plan and you try to work through these policies that are in here, one does talk about goal 2.4 is neighborhood livability. If I just may have a moment, when we talk about these policies that you're considering tonight, provide a sense of place and identity for residents and visitors by protecting and maintaining neighborhoods as the basis unit of community life in Oregon City while implementing the goals and policies of the other sections of the comp plan. Policy 2.41, develop neighborhood plans to strengthen and protect residential neighborhoods. We don't have a neighborhood plan in this area. Policy 2.4, 2, strive to establish facilities and land uses in every neighborhood that help give vibrancy, a sense of place, and a feeling of uniqueness, such as activity centers and points of interest. That's one of the policies we look at. They're not really proposing development here. You're looking at a zone change request. Promote connectivity between neighborhoods and neighborhood commercial centers through a variety of transportation modes. Where environmental constraints reduce the amount of buildable land and/or where adjacent land differs in uses or densities. Implement comprehensive plan and zoning designations that encourage compatible transitional uses. Ensure a process is developed to prevent barriers in the development of neighborhood schools, senior and child care facilities, parks, and other uses that serve the needs of the immediate area and residents of the city. Diverse housing opportunities in Goal 10.1. Goal 10 is our housing section of the comp plan. Provide for the planning, development, and preservation of a variety of housing types and lot sizes to provide for needed affordable housing. Maintain the existing residential housing stock in established older neighborhoods by maintaining existing comp plan and zoning designations where appropriate. Ensure active enforcement of the municipal code to ensure maintenance of housing stock in good condition and protect neighborhood character and livability. Designate residential land for a balanced variety of densities and types of housing, such as single-family attached and detached, and a range of multifamily densities and types, including mixed use. Aim to reduce the isolation of income groups within communities by encouraging diversity in housing types within neighborhoods consistent with the Clackamas County Consolidated Plan while ensuring that needed affordable housing is provided. So, very broad policy statements that you need to consider tonight when you're looking at these requests within the same comprehensive plan designation. And it's really what's the appropriate application of R10, R8, or R6, which all fall within that low-density residential comprehensive plan designation. And the description of low-density residential, it's half a sentence that talks about single-family residential, which is what all three of those zones which in that comp plan provide. So when you talk about compatibility, and we don't see a whole lot of that word in here, and so trying to guide you with the policies that we see dealing with housing types, and zoning.
Paul, you had a question.
Well, I was just reading the comments from John Replinger, and on page, I think, 2, he was talking about the intersection of South Central Point Road and Warner Parrott Road is predicted to fail or meet operational standards to the year 2035 with or without the rezoning of the property to LOS-F and VC in excess of 1.0. And then, so that's something to think about. And then the other part of that is that the poor performance of the intersection could be mitigated by prohibiting northbound left turns, okay, to South Central Point Road. But then also the TSP proposes a roundabout at the intersection of Warner Manley and Warner Parrott and Leland, Lynn Five Corners, I always call it. And it would provide excess capacity and fix this, but then it goes on to talk about how that would get paid for and that the cost of that would be exacted from this subdivision or future subdivisions, or I wasn't exactly sure how that was going to occur. I mean, because in my planning world, we have a really tight box that we have to be in when we're looking at exactions, and we have to look at specific modalities and the amount of specific impact on that development and what we can actually exact from the actual developer, and it has to be pretty close in the neighborhood of that area, even if it's a broad zone change. So I'm just wondering how we get there with that.
I know,
Pete,
how we've done it in the past, so we can.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of pick up on a little bit what Denise and Paul were talking about. The report doesn't seem to give a baseline to compare to what's there now. It only compares to if the property was an R10 R10 development versus R6. And if you were to compare the current situation as far as traffic is concerned, we're not talking about starting at a current level of service for R10. We actually have virtually no traffic generated from these sites.
Right.
So I'd be curious to know what that delta is between current services versus the R6.
I agree. Perhaps the applicant's traffic engineer can address it tonight, and if we can't address it tonight, we'll respond later. Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Pete, do you have any more in your presentation?
No, I just wanted to point out the exhibits in the staff report so that people will know where they are. Without going into too much detail, we have the vicinity map, some of which I've shown you tonight. The full applicant submittal, which is part and parcel of the staff report, including the traffic analysis and the natural resource overlay district analysis is all available. The various public notices that have been provided are on file. And the public comments which were made available prior to the staff report are exhibits 4A through E, including a letter from Tom O'Brien as a citizen comment, a letter from Tom O'Brien as Hazel Grove Westland Farms Neighborhood Association comment, a letter from Patricia Ullman of Payson Farms Homeowners Association, a petition objecting to the zone change with signatures signed by approximately 150 people, and also a letter from Roger Dunnigan with an attached article from the Oregonian, which talks about a growing problem is the title. It's talking about rezoning in the Portland area. We also have the comments from John Rapplinger, and in order to address school capacity, I included an excerpt from the South End concept plan, where the school district talked about adequate capacity for the purposes of build out of the South End concept plan area in 2035 to show that there's adequate school capacity. Thank you.
To Jennifer. Jennifer, on that article regarding the growth in Portland, are we obliged, because it was entered as part of the application, or to enter that into the record?
Yeah, it's part of the public comment. I mean, there might be something in the letter that refers to why they submitted it.
I didn't see it. It's in general, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I
that
think
Oregon
you,
City is making a mistake.
but, well, you can only read into it as
He's
much as
saying
you,
that the articles imply.
as the person who submitted it said, and then take it from your own, you know, where it fits.
He moved. He's moved. Could I ask Pete one more quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Pete, I forgot, was there anywhere in here that told how much property? You mentioned it was 5 tax lots, but
Yeah,
what's the, I just looked
It's
for
about
it.
18 acres.
18 acres,
Yeah.
okay. Because I kept saying, I know I saw it, but
And 70% of it's developable.
yeah, 18 acres.
We think.
Okay.
I'm taking notes.
Okay, anything else?
No, thank you
thank
for a
you.
concise and good staff report.
Great, thank you. So we will hear from the applicant at this time.
Yeah. Somewhere in here.
Yes, it is.
This is not made for short people. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mimi Dukas. I'm with Venture Properties, the applicant before you this evening. And joining me is Todd Mobley from Lancaster Engineering to discuss some of the transportation issues. I want to start by thanking Mr. Walter. He did an excellent overview of the technical background of what's before you tonight, our request for an R6 zone change over 5 tax lots that are 17.74 acres. We believe that this zone change is appropriate for several reasons, and Mr. Walter touched on several of these. First of all, this property has sufficient infrastructure to support a higher density. It is close to the South End District and its future services and assets. It is located along a collector road that has full multimodal possibilities to it. Most importantly, it's an efficient use of land within the urban growth boundary, which will delay the need for future UGB expansions and future annexations into the city of Oregon City. It also provides, as Mr. Walter pointed out, a diversity of housing, which is part of what Venture Properties is looking for, is a different market focus for what can happen out here. And the market demand in the world today just is not for very large lots, at least for the majority of home buyers. What we are seeing is that the majority of home buyers are really looking for smaller, more manageable yards and more value into the home itself. And the R6 zone with a 6,000 square foot average lot size is really what our customers are saying they would like to see. But more importantly, the reason that we think that this site is appropriate for consideration for additional density is that it is part of a larger district. And you can see it within the zoning map before you. These two parcels, or these two subject sites, are part of an area that was brought into the city. There were about 60 acres that were annexed back in 2006. The downturn hit, and the property has sat quietly for the most part since then, remaining in agricultural use. But we think that now is the time to start to talk about the urbanization. You've had the recent subdivision application on the R8 parcel just to the north of the Johnson properties. But this property has the unique opportunity to be viewed in a larger planning context. There are design possibilities. It can be looked at comprehensively, and that's why we think it's the right place to start talking about increased density. Responsible density, not just a density dump, not just a holding place for density, but thoughtfully designed density. What we want to talk to you tonight, though, as Commissioner Mahoney points out, the real issue tonight is really about compatibility. We're aware of that. Obviously, we've got a room full of people that have brought that forward. We've talked about it at the neighborhood meeting. We've seen the public record. It's the conversation we want to have with you tonight is how do we address that compatibility? This is your community. You need to be a part of that conversation. So that's what we want to accomplish tonight. The tools that you have available in discussing compatibility, we have a few options here. You can rezone the entire site to R6. We think, Venture Properties thinks that you've got good justification for that. We think there are comprehensive plan policies that support that. Now, when we're talking about how you combine that with the compatibility, what are those tools? Unfortunately, Oregon City doesn't have a planned unit development tool in your toolbox that would be a good solution here, that would allow the moving of density within a larger development. I still think that's probably our best solution, is finding a way to treat the edges in a way that's respectful to the existing neighborhood, and concentrating the density away from those neighborhoods, but still allowing it to happen within this larger district. So that could be achieved through, and staff will cringe at this, through a condition of approval on the zone change, which I know is not a preferred tool to put on a condition on a zone change. It's hard to implement, it's hard to track, but this is a special circumstance, and I think it's worth looking at. You could condition the zone change to require minimum lot sizes adjacent to the existing neighborhoods, to have matching lot sizes, to have a certain depth of compatible housing, equivalent lot sizes, something along those lines. I think that's probably our best solution, personally. The other thing we could talk about is some sort of graduated density. Is there some portion of this district that makes sense to be R6? Is there some portion that makes sense to be R8? And how do we find that balance point? I don't particularly want to come to you with a question like that. It's a very large question. I would prefer to have a nice, clean application that I can present to you. I just don't think this property has a nice, clean answer. And it's got more complexity to it, and that's why we want to talk it through with you. We're willing to take the time to have that conversation, but that's what we would like to accomplish this evening. Now, there were a few technical points that Mr. Walter brought up. First of all, he mentioned the natural resource overlay. There is a finger of natural resource overlay. I know there is some sensitivity on the Planning Commission about that based on, I did review the hearing that you had recently on the other zone change. Within our application materials, you did see that we had a natural resource consultant go out. We believe that that land no longer meets the criteria for a natural resource. Now is not the right time to take that district off. We would do that with the subdivision itself. And then, obviously, the other technical issue are some of your questions about the trip generation and the transportation study. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Mobley.
I'm Todd. Excuse me. I'm Todd Mobley with Lancaster Engineering. Our address is 321 Southwest 4th Avenue, Suite 400 in Portland. I'll just answer a few of the questions. I think it might be easiest if I do that to just sort of give a quick explanation of the mechanics of the traffic study and why we do a few of the things we do in that document. So the specific task of that is really to look at the operation at the end of the planning horizon, which in this case is year 2035. It's consistent with your transportation system plan. So we want to look at the increase in density and the specific impacts of going from R10 to R6 and what that looks like at the end of the planning horizon, and we have to show adequacy of the transportation system. So Commissioner Kidwell, your question about a baseline condition, we do look at existing conditions and then we look at the forecast 2035 conditions. And in the derivation of those 2035 traffic volumes is development under the existing zone. So those R10 level trips are kind of built into that traffic forecast. So that's why we look at the net between R10 and R6, so we can add that on top of what was already established as a 2035 volume. So does that piece answer your question?
I understood that.
Okay.
I'm just pointing out that the increase from current conditions is not that delta, it's the total amount.
Correct. That's correct. And then with regard to the trip generation, just to explain what those numbers are and add some context, we talked about a net increase of 27 trips, but to be clear, that's just the net increase from going from one density to the other, and that's only during the AM peak hour, so it's a 1 hour period in the morning is what that 27 number comes from.
What is that AM peak hour for you?
Oh, it's generally a 1 hour period between 7 and 9 in the morning.
1 hour between 7 and 9, that's 2 hours.
Well, right. We generally we'll do counts. That we'll generally look at that 2 hour window and take the peak 1 hour within that window. So generally,
it's movable.
Right, correct.
For this project, it's 7:25 to 8:25 a.m.
25 to 8:25.
It comes from
Is
the
that always movable,
traffic
or is that
counts.
just in this instance here?
Oh, in this instance, a lot of times that's driven by in the morning peak hour, especially when schools start. Those sorts of factors can vary. So that comes from the traffic counts that we did. That was the peak hour.
So they do full traffic counts, and then they find what is that peak hour for that specific site.
Was that done by a study by Lancaster or something existing with the city?
Oh, that was done as part of our traffic
Okay,
study.
thanks.
Correct.
And
Anything
mitigation?
else? Yeah, the mitigation at Central Point and Warner Parrott. Our findings were consistent with those in your transportation system plan. If we did restrict that northbound left turn, that's the movement that experiences a long delay. Construction of that roundabout as considered in the TSP would give the opportunity for those left turners to use the roundabout to still make their left turn and go in their desired direction of travel. So our findings were really consistent with your transportation system plan. We found that intersection would fail, and those mitigations that are considered in the TSP are consistent with our recommendations.
And that mitigation is required whether the zone change occurs or not. If there's any development on this property, it's going to be the same mitigation needs regardless.
So your analysis basically, just only deals with one intersection. So we've got not only the traffic coming out of the surrounding area, but you have traffic coming out of this particular development that's all going down Malala Avenue to 7th to Singer Creek to Main, or it's going down Malala to 7th to Washington Street, and there are, it's kind of like putting a pebble in the pond, and then it just intensifies.
Sure. We looked
So
at...
you're not, it doesn't, which is unfortunately one of the reasons why I never really liked the ITE manual, because it doesn't talk about all of those other off-site impacts that happen as, so let's say it is only 27 trips.
The snowball effect.
It just kind of keeps, exponentially growing.
We did look at 4 intersections along Central Point. And as far as looking at further distant intersections and the effects of that, it just gets to the level of impact that's kind of driven by the size of the development. So when we establish a scope of work for a traffic study, we work with the city's traffic consultant so that really to look at the whole city sort of in a TSP magnitude for a site of this size that's smaller, those distant impacts are really negligible. So that's what
I know, and it's not your fault. It's just it's like he said. It's just this, and this, and it just snowballs. I don't happen to live in that particular neighborhood, so I'm not the one traveling someplace that's going through that neighborhood. They're all coming down to where I live.
Part of what the safety net to account for that are the system development charges that are applied to every building permit that gets pulled.
I understand that.
We have this specific mitigation to make sure that everything still functions once development is built out, but there's also capital improvement dollars that go into the general bucket so that the city can fix system-wide issues.
Yeah, we're so far
over time.
behind. It's not funny. So
I understand.
This is a drop in the bucket.
Are there other questions for the applicant?
Yeah. So you very nicely mentioned that you were interested in a thoughtfully designed density for this particular piece of property. So why didn't you submit a proposal that shows what you might be wanting to do there, so that we could see that?
The layout of the...
Because we think R6 actually is an appropriate zone for the entire property. We're not oblivious to the public voice that has occurred. We heard the public voice in the neighborhood meeting, which I have to say was run remarkably well for a difficult conversation, and I do appreciate the neighborhood's diplomacy in that. We do think R6 makes the most sense. As I said, I think a design solution with a condition of approval of some distance of compatible lot size is the right solution. I don't know what that right distance is.
You don't have anything of what you're thinking to show us.
And I was thinking the same thing, because I thought, well, how many roads would that entail through one of these? Would it be 2 or 3 roads down there? Having a general idea of how the layout would be would have given me a general idea of how the whole picture of R6 looked versus something else.
And that's part of the complexity, is there's so many variables involved. We would have to do 20 different sketches to try and sort that out.
Just kidding.
So then the other thing is that I know that your consultants on the natural resources recognize that this has been, the last couple of years have been very unusually dry. And so when I read the report and they said, well, you know, we don't find anything because it's dry. Well, I said, yes, it's been dry.
Some
We've
criteria.
had drought conditions for the last few years. So there's water coming somewhere on the site, or they wouldn't have put in the drainage pipe, because obviously they didn't want their Christmas trees or whatever to be flooded. So I'm having a hard time reconciling the fact that the city wouldn't have put the overlay on there if they hadn't suspected that there was something there. I mean, I have to believe that. And so your consultants, I'm very familiar with them. They're very credible. But I'm just thinking, this is a year, the last 2 years have been, as I said, very, very dry. So I'm kind of having a hard time reconciling that. And then the other thing is obviously that you've got power lines running through the property. And I know that you can't put anything under them. But I guess the other concern that I have is I know of some folks that live out on Caulfield, and the BPA power line easement runs through their backyard, and that thing hums all the time. He's got a very large lot, and I mean acreage, and I was in his house and standing out in his backyard right by the house. It was like, I mean, I could hear it, and it was quite a bit distant. And I'm just thinking, how are you planning on mitigating for that? I mean, I can't say what I would do personally, but I would have some concerns about that.
Well, and those are all things that we're going to have to work through on the subdivision design itself. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, is the number of moving parts in regards to this property and the type of zoning and how we transition all that. There are factors with this property that are going to lead to open space, a variety of lot sizes. It's not going to be a cookie cutter, pounded out, gridded out, boring subdivision. It's going to have some character to it. It's going to have some corridors of those power line easements that are going to have some open space to them. We're going to have to talk through the natural resource corridor. Those are all things that we have to work through. But it starts with the zoning. We don't even know how many lots we can put in. We don't know what the spacing on those roadway networks are going to look like. So putting a sketch together is just, it's
Mr. Chair, I've got a question.
too early at this point.
You know, we always are looking at zone changes and subdivisions and design development as mutually exclusive events.
And they're not.
And they're not. And I think that, especially when we don't have tools like plan developments or other kinds of things like that, we really do need to see something that's attached to the zone change that gives us some convincing evidence that this is going to work, and it's going to be something that is actually of a different variety and of a unique design, other than just a density dump as you had put it. So I have that problem, I guess. On one end of it,
Struggling.
it's easy to say, yeah, this is just a zone change to R6, and this is all we're really looking at. We just want to look at the comp plan criteria and evaluate it based on that criteria. So this may be a question to staff too.
Well, I
Are we justified
I have a
in-
related.
Yeah, asking for
That's what I'm
that.
Yeah, I have a
struggling with.
related thought. I was
Yeah.
actually thinking about what Denise had said, and then what you said. I don't know that we have the option of attaching conditions to a zone change application that says, well,
Right.
you can have a graduated
We don't.
zone. I don't think that's even an
Graduated
option.
lot size, I think is what she was suggesting.
Yeah. So graduated density is not even something that we can bring to the table, I don't believe.
Right, and I think, this is the first we're hearing of it. I mean, if this is something you'd like us to look into and review, we would appreciate additional time to do that. This isn't something I think we want to be doing from the
no.
dais.
No.
You're
Right.
correct. We removed the plan unit development section from the municipal code multiple years ago now. The nearest thing we would have would be master planning, but there are certain rights that the property owner, as the applicant, has, and it is the right of one to submit a zone change. And so, you need to base your decision on the facts that you have before you.
Right.
We can certainly, there are certain rights, especially when it comes to needed housing and clear and objective standards. There's conversations I need to have with my attorney if we're getting into an area where you're essentially saying you need to come back to the Planning Commission under some type of a subjective review for housing. So I understand where you're coming from, and I think as we get through tonight, maybe we can have that discussion as you get a bit more comfortable with what you've heard and how to proceed. But I think that there are some conversations that the attorney and potentially the applicant need to have to see what options would be available to you.
Right, but am I correct that we don't really have that option?
You can't
before
just
us?
make up a zone.
No.
Yeah.
We can't
Well, we
have
could, but we can't.
You could, but I think both of us would be sitting here going, time out.
Yeah.
So that's not a tool we have in our toolbox to offer them that they could have a graduated zone as part of this process tonight.
Once again, I think we'd have to have a discussion to see
It's
what
an
the
idea.
options are.
And we're not expecting any decision tonight. We're not, like I said, we want to have a conversation with you and work through this with staff, with the city attorney. I think we're mushing two topics together. First of all, there's the concept of a condition of approval on the zone change regulating lot sizes adjacent to existing development. That's a clear standard, and I believe, and it's up to the city attorney and the planning director about support for the concept, I believe that you can put a condition of approval on a zone change that says lots adjacent on the north side and the south side need to have a minimum lot size of a 10,000 square feet for a distance of X. I don't think you can put a condition that we've got graduated zoning. I think if you want graduated zoning, then we need to go back and draw some examples of what that zoning rainbow would look like. And there's only 3 colors, so it's a small rainbow. And that is something we can do. As I said, it's not my preferred option, but we're open to talking it through.
I think we were just reacting to what you had said.
Sure.
And I think that the reality is that that's a discussion that has to happen outside
Somewhere
of this
else, yeah.
hearing.
Yep.
I was kind of thinking like an Oreo cookie. It was bigger on the outside, getting smaller in the center.
Do you have other
Yeah,
questions?
just one
Okay.
more, if they would be so kind as to indulge me. So, I know that you said that the site is complex, and I would agree, and part of my frustration with these types of applications where there is no development proposed is that usually there are a lot of other little mitigating circumstances. This one happens to have natural resources, there's the power line. So, again, without all the information, I can't presume that Venture Properties would have proposed to buy these properties without, in your back office somewhere, doing a little layout of saying, gee, we might be able to get this, because I've worked with a lot of development companies over my career, and I know that happens in the back room, because otherwise, why would you buy it sight without going, well, I don't know how many lots we want to get, but we just like this property, so we're just going to buy it anyway. And I was interested last week. I was looking at your website, and I was interested in the fact that it says that your company buys distressed properties. So I'm not sure what that exactly means, but I don't know if I would consider this. I mean, this is vacant land, so
No, this is vacant land.
distressed properties are something else where they might be underwater or in trouble or
It's
something.
a completely different market sector. That's
Yeah.
for City of Portland rebuilt houses,
Okay.
individual lots. That's a completely different segment of the company.
Okay.
Yeah. And we do have.
Well, I did. I didn't know who Venture Properties was or what it was, so I went online.
No, that's great. That's great homework. We do have a ton of sketches, and we've looked at a lot of iterations, and they help a little bit, and they did help us sort out how the real estate works. But the real estate also depends on the zoning, and this zone change is not some sort of cash cow. We don't pay the same price if the zoning is different. The price changes as well. When I said that we are wanting the R6 zone because 6,000 square foot lots is what the market really wants, that's because we think the home builder demand is for 6,000 square foot lots, and we're going to have a better project in the real estate market because of that. It's not necessarily how it hits the bottom line. It all kind of works out, and it comes out in the wash, and it's pretty much the same. It really has to do with what is the most marketable from an end product standpoint. What are your citizens wanting to buy? What is the marketplace wanting to buy? And it goes back to that diversity of housing conversation, is that there really is a need in Oregon City for 6,000 square foot lots or somewhere in that range. You know, you have 21% of your low-density residential is in the R6 zone. That's not a lot. That's a small sliver, and if you look at the entire metro region, it's really that lot size that is off the charts the highest demand.
Yeah.
You kind of answered something I was going to ask, is what was your idea in proposing R6s as opposed to R8? And you had mentioned earlier that you probably had done some drawings back there. I was trying to figure out how you, in that process, how you figured R6s, would it require more streets here or there? I know you don't have anything specific, but you must have when you thought about it. Well, R6s work better than R8 in this location, or R10?
You know, I actually have I'm a planner by trade. I'm a landscape architect as well, so I do layouts myself. And when you do a residential layout, they're remarkably similar in how you the lot width is what really changes through the course of development. R10 is funny though. I mean, you don't want a lot that's so wide that so 100 to 120 feet is your normal lot depth, but R10 it starts getting deeper than that. So yes, I have some sketches that are laid out. They're not entirely lot by lot, but I keep trying to get back to that 6,000. It's what's in my system. I know it. It's what makes sense. So my sketches don't all make sense. I've got a ton of them. We can show them and the neighbors have gotten copies of what we've talked through. We've had pre-application meetings on some sketches that we did for this whole area because we've been talking to a variety of people, but people zoom in on certain things. They lock in on certain concepts, and suddenly we're a year down the road when we're actually trying to do a subdivision, and the conversation is we're having to back it up and undo some misconceptions about things. It really complicates things when we start getting too far in advance when we're trying to have a zoning conversation and we start zeroing in on subdivision issues. And that's part of our hesitation of putting too many sketches out there. People get more keyed up thinking that it is real and it's solid and that's what it's going to be, when there's still a lot of moving parts and a lot of decisions to be made.
But isn't that part and parcel of the zoning process? That's an R6, and that's what some people don't like. So it's just, you're going to do an R6, some people aren't going to like it, some people may like it. That's just part of the game, I guess you might call it.
What we're trying to work through.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're bringing your testimony back to the region, and I totally understand that we are part of a larger, metropolitan planning area, and I totally understand that I just finished being a part of the South End Concept Plan, where we did not recommend meeting the density, and our proposal went in with a little bit less density because of what we heard from the public. And that was one of the things that was really important to me as a person who was one of many participating in the process. So while I recognize that, I think that what you're hearing from my colleagues and myself is that we understand that that's the hierarchy, but we're down here tonight in Oregon City, and we've got a neighborhood area of the city that people are looking at, and it gets a little tough to look them in the eye and say, well, we have to meet the planning rule for Metro, because that's not what's really important to them. What's really important to them has to do with where they live and their neighborhood and the traffic, because I know I'm in a neighborhood association as well, the intersections, visibility, walking, bicycling, all of that. They're honing in on what's closer to home for them. So I just want you to know that I appreciated the fact that you said that, And we have, that's why we're on the hot seat up here, because
Right.
we have to make a decision.
Right.
And I think what I'd like to see too is in this traffic analysis, a little bit more mitigation, a little more discussion on the mitigation in quantifiable terms. We have an impact. We have some mitigations proposed. I want to know how much of that mitigation is going to, how much impact of that is that mitigation going to prevent? How many vehicle trips is that going to reduce? That kind of thing.
What does the mitigation
Yeah.
actually accomplish?
What does it accomplish? Right,
Okay.
right. Because a lot of times we do say, "Oh, well, we're just going to restripe lanes, or we're going to, prevent the left turn lane from happening, or those kinds of things," and we don't really know exactly what that means in terms of the reduced traffic trips. So we'd like to see a little bit more of that, I guess.
The end result.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll hear from individuals and representatives. Given the quantities of people that we have, we'll limit testimony for those that are representing a recognized neighborhood association
Thank you.
to 5 minutes.
Thanks very much.
And to those that are representing themselves as individuals to 3 minutes. And I will have a timer running. If you would please respect the time, that would be great. And we can hopefully get out of here before it's too late.
Before midnight.
He turns.
First call up, excuse me, Jordan Birch.
Do we go front or?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. And you'll need to come up and identify yourself.
We don't bite at all. We're just
Welcome.
we're just regular people,
Yeah.
just like you.
Perfect, thank you.
We just ask for anyone providing public testimony, if you do, please submit a comment form if I haven't received one yet, and then when you come to the dais, just introduce yourself in the city, or if you live in the city or in the county.
Perfect. Excuse me. My name's Jordan Birch, and I live 12060 Hazeldale Avenue. I don't know if the cursor's on here. I can show you where I live. I actually live right here on this lot, 12060 Hazeldale.
Right by the A.
Yep. So, 3 years ago, I moved my family from West Lynn to Oregon City. And because I saw the potential for how I could build my own future, right? And my family's future. I looked at the fact that, it does go into wider lots out on that end of town. And I saw the potential for what the housing market could possibly do in Oregon City. I view it as a very good potential for me. Over those last 3 years, the property value has stayed pretty much stagnant in that marketplace where I currently live, compared to the rest of the state of Oregon. The proposed rezoning, the variance of the Hazeldale neighborhood will, alter the essential character of this neighborhood. And as a result, it will negatively affect my property value as well as my neighbors. These proposed changes threaten the health and safety of the Hazeldale neighborhood, and a project of this scale will put an inordinate economic burden in the neighborhood that I live in. This change in zoning is not desired by me or the neighborhood that my family and I live in. When I walked in here today, I grabbed one of your pens. If you've ever read this, it said, "City of Oregon City, preserving our past, building our future." And that's exactly what I'm trying to do for me and my family, is to preserve my past, and my family's past, and build my future as well. And rezoning will prevent that. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak.
Are we allowed to ask a question like, I was just wondering, were you part of the 26 at that meeting? I'm just wondering who all was at the meeting.
Yeah, I did sign the petition, but I was not able to make that meeting.
Okay, just wondered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Pat Ullman. Also on the dais tonight, you have one exhibit submitted from Pat Ullman, who will enter into the record as exhibit number 1. It's a one-page letter.
Good evening. I live at 11830 Payson Lane, right here. I am also the president of the Payson Farms Homeowners Association. We have 42 homes, 68 homeowners, and I had some prepared remarks which I provided for you, but just with the meeting, I would like to add a couple of more. Regarding traffic, of our homes, we have 10 of them that only have one vehicle. Well, there's another 10 that have 3 vehicles. So each of those homes have 2 vehicles. And if we're looking at approximately, I think, 90 homes were mentioned, that's 180 additional vehicles we would be looking at for however many trips they might make. As we look at the 5 points where we're talking where Central Point meets Warner Parrott, the traffic lanes have been mentioned, but the strip mall there has not been mentioned. And there's a lot of, I've seen many dangerous situations with people entering and exiting that strip mall.
You're talking about where
So-
the plaid pantry is?
That's right,
Okay.
where the plaid pantry is. Also, I just would remind you that in the pre-app submittal, there was a proposed plat map, although at the time there was a different amount of property. But if you review that, you'll find that information. Okay, back to my prepared remarks. We understand the demand for expansion and for sustainable development, and we understand you have to plan accordingly, and we accept that the development of this property is inevitable. However, it's our hope that you consider our request that you do not rezone to R6. We do have concerns for traffic safety, density, and in our case in Payson Farms, which I mentioned in my letter, drainage, among others stated. But as I visit the new R6 neighborhoods in southwest Oregon City with their tiny front yards composed entirely of 2-story homes, the look and feel is crowded and claustrophobic. At the edge of town, the subject property and our surrounding neighborhoods feel almost real, and we would request that you preserve the current character and aesthetic of the existing mix of home sizes. Please do not give us this crowded claustrophobia. And I would also, as I am a little bit older, like to remind you that of the expanding demographic of retiring baby boomers who request and need single-level homes for safety in their declining years. And R6 zoning doesn't allow single-level homes, really, with any decent square footage because of the requirement for these 6,000 square foot lot sizes. So in effect, we would get a discriminatory result against this group of people. My husband and I purchased our home specifically for that. As we go in, this is going to be our last home, and we did it so that it would be safe for us. So please consider this point of view as you make this forever decision. And finally, as I was studying the submission package today, and I noticed that in addition to the R10 stub outs, which for the audience here, that's in the streets, where the connections for sewer and utilities in the Hazel Creek Farm subdivision listed in the findings and recommendations for this proposed zone change. There are 3 listed there. There are also 2 additional approved R8 stub outs in the newly approved Central Crossing subdivision, 27 lot subdivision right here in this R8 area that ICON will be soon constructing. So one of those R8 stub outs will go to tax lot 1593 in the subject property, and then there will be another one to future development to the northeast there. It was previously demonstrated by your precedent within the package in the Peace Road area relative to stub outs that deviation from current zoning is extremely difficult. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Quick question for you.
Surely.
I think I heard you say originally that you represented the Payson Farms subdivision.
Association.
Is that an HOA?
Yeah, so
Yes.
she said.
Okay, that's
this
what I
was
thought.
a plan unit development of 40 homes. There are 2 homes on the corner that are not in the association, but are represented in our development.
Yeah, that's similar to where they. My question was, you talked about single-level homes for safety, and thank you for pointing out baby boomers. How many of those homes in that Payson area are single-level homes? Is there a lot?
Half of them.
Half of them are single-level at that,
Mhm.
so they're not 2 stories. Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, Kirby Warner.
And plenty nine.
Huh?
And plenty
Oh,
nine.
plenty nine, okay. Do you want to do 2 people at a time? So cue one, somebody up, and then for the next one?
I didn't need to spend a lot of time. I do
Say your
have
name.
one main concern.
Can you say your name?
Oh, yes, excuse me.
Say-
I'm sorry, Commissioners. My name is Kirby Warner, and I live in Payson Farms also. I live right on this lot right there. And my main concern is with the traffic. I think all of us under Payson Farms and the whole area there, we understand that this area is going to be developed, and we're happy to have it developing, and I'm sure and everything, but we don't really need the R6 development. I'm concerned about the road right here on Central Point Avenue as it comes up right now. I feel it's inadequate as it is, and we're going to have more traffic on it. So that's my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'd like me to call up 2 at a time?
Yeah.
I think it'd be easier, just helps people queue up a
Expedite.
little better.
Okay. Margaret Murphy and Kathy Hogan.
And Kathy's going to be representing the neighborhood, so she gets 5 minutes. And then you're not alone, when you're up there.
Okay, well, I'm Margaret Murphy, and my husband and I live on the corner of White Lane and Renee Way. Where exactly it is? Right there. Okay, okay. And there will be a cross street. They're going to be building a road. This doesn't really show any of the roads. And our the park for Payson Farms is right here.
The what is?
The park.
Park, okay.
Yeah, is right there. I know there are many concerns regarding the increased traffic, but the issue I want to address is the safety of the children of the development in regards to the increased traffic on the corner where I live. My husband and I live on the corner of White Lane and Renee Way. Our corner already has had near accidents and animals run over. Many people drive fast down White Lane to get wherever they're going. With the addition of a cross street, I'm worried about the increased danger of accidents, especially with the increased amount of children who will be coming over to play in Payson Farms Park. They certainly won't have any room to play in their small yards. I think that often precautions aren't dealt with until it's too late and a child is hurt. So I'm really worried about this. I also wonder about Payson Farms' liability at the park with the increased amount of children who may or may not have supervision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Hogan, and I think a few of you already know where I live on Central Point. I have problems getting in and out of my driveway. Not that I don't love the neighbors across the street from me, but I have to either back in or back out of my driveway. And with increased traffic and people going down that way will cause an accident. And I know who I'll hold responsible. That being, say, when you say R6 and you give them that R6, I find that's what they will build, and only that. It won't be a variety. I'm a boomer. I may not stay in my house forever. I might want a single-story house. The wetlands, or whatever you want, the water resource, if you look at the subject place where Icon is going to be building, that fence is dividing those two properties. It has a slope that just is like a bowl. So there is big water issues for the Payson Farm people. Their property, their park is a private park. So they are going to have litigation problems because it's a private park. And, you know, if you did a PUD, the sizes usually were always starting, you get one at 8, and you get another one at 6 and 5. It never was a consistent type housing development. Luckily, we fought to get that consistent one across the street from that I was talking about on Payson's Farm. The South End future, you're talking about the roundabout. Partlow and McCord are very bad intersections. They're offset. So Partlow and South End is offset from the, I don't know what the name of it is, Longstanding Court or something like that. That's offset for when people go. So that when you talk about the future and the 25 or 2035 on the South End concept plan, I don't see anything help. Supposedly this is going to be a long time for the South End concept plan. So there's not going to be any mitigation for these sites. R8 is better. It would be nice if it was R8 and R10, but I don't see how, you know, unless they're willing to do it, that it's going to happen. So the traffic manifestation on Central Point, it's going to be increased. 90 homes versus 58, that would be a lot of difference. That's what they gave us at the Hazel Grove Wesleyan Farm Neighborhood Association. Let's see. So I would just have you consider what the impact, and the smaller the lots, more cars park out on the road, and there are toys, no place for them to go. So, thank you.
Kathy, I've got a couple questions for you.
Yes.
Did you just say that in one of your neighborhood association meetings they said 90 homes with an R6 versus 58? Did you say
It was
that?
96 versus 58.
Versus 58 for
In
what,
October
R10?
17 minutes.
Pardon?
In October 17th minutes of last year.
And may I also ask, in your results were as follows: you have opposed 26, abstained 5. Are those 5 the actual developers themselves, and maybe the people who own the property, or?
They don't get to vote.
Oh, they don't. Some people allow in Park Place. They allow anybody to vote.
No. We actually, they were, the 26 were those within the neighborhood. I think Mr. Johnson might have abstained.
So
And
people who own property where they abstain.
Yeah, I think some of them did.
Just wondering how they vote.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So, go
Kathy,
ahead.
was your testimony on behalf of the neighborhood association, or was this private testimony?
Private with a little, I'm giving Tom.
Oh, Tom's going to come up and represent. Okay.
Yeah, so, because it's basically, traffic. You're going to use your car because there's no buses out South End or Central Point. So they are going to be driving everywhere. I don't see the bus coming down Central Point and going down New Era. So, and the New Era Road is like South End Road, a lot of curves. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Leo Marsh and Tom O'Brien.
Have to get our acts together here.
So is Leo Marsh going first?
Yeah.
Because he was called first?
Yes. Because Tom told him to, too.
property.
Okay.
Very well, okay. My name's Leo Marsh. I live on 121 Hazeldale Avenue. My house is on the borderline of coming into the R10 property you're looking at. I was in construction for a lot of years, and my son is still in construction, and we noticed that most of the property developed in Oregon City last few years is R6, so there's a lot of it. I moved and built homes in this R10 area because of the size of the lots, and most of us love it there. Now, I'm not going to really like homes being
behind me, 2.5 stories high, with 5-foot backyards. I mean, they're looking in my backyard. Well, I've got a 35, 40-foot backyard like most of the people all the way down our street. I really don't need houses looking into my backyard. I mean, I run around with all my clothes on, but, you know. But I've got fish back there I want to show off. Okay. That property is R10 zone now. Most of the property around it is R10 zone. We enjoy our sizes of our yards, privacy in our homes, and most of us don't want these homes with 5-foot backyards, 2.5 stories high, being part of our backyard. Most other areas are being R6s already. I think this neighborhood being as a R10 in general is the only way to go. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pete has worked with me to put this on digital format for the file, but I want to give hard copies to the commissioners to follow along with me a little bit.
There's only 5 right now. Did you bring a copy for our attorney?
If she'd like one, she's
so
welcome
she
to
can see
it.
what we're looking at.
I have more than enough. We're a few commissioners short.
Thanks.
Yeah, we have some short term.
Tom, are you representing the neighborhood?
I am. And I wanted to
Please introduce yourself.
Tom O'Brien, co-chair of the Hazel Grove Westling Farms Neighborhood Association.
Thank you.
And I thank the applicant for their kind remarks on how they were treated at our meeting. And we had 2 meetings. We had the meeting where the applicant presented, and then our following meeting, after we had an opportunity to actually advertise it amongst the homeowner or the neighborhood association, we had another large turnout, and we asked Vern Johnson, who was one of the applicants, property owners, to give us an understanding of his viewpoints and so forth also. And then when that was completed, we took the vote that is mentioned in the report. But what I would like to point out is a couple things, and I'd also like to make some comments regarding earlier testimony, particularly by the traffic engineer. The City Commission has established goals, and one of their goals has to do with the fact that they want to have this be a livable community. And I really think that your role as a planning commissioners plays into that. I think that all of us, no matter what commissions and boards we serve on within the city, have a responsibility to take a look at the goals that the City Commission has established and try as best we can to assist them in reaching the goals that they've outlined. So that's the basis of what I'm doing here. I made a mistake, and I'll be the first to admit it. This, as it turns out, in Pete's earlier map, shows as a R3.5 rather than an R6. But I think one of the responsibilities for us is we ought to be doing what successful business ventures do, and that is regularly review the decisions which we make in the city and determine if what we've done is working, and if it's not working, make some effort to improve upon what we've established in the past. In this instance, I went through this particular neighborhood, and I would invite you to do the same. It's a neighborhood that, because of lack of space, has an overwhelmingly large number, more than 50% of the homes in this particular neighborhood have their trash receptacles and recycle containers in the front of their homes. It does not do anything to really enhance the livability of our city when we're faced with that kind of a situation. Notice the home on the left, right in front of the garage is a recycle bin. You got a couple of them on the home on the right. Here again. And this is pretty typical when you increase the density within a neighborhood.
Can you stop on that one? No, the one you just, I was looking at the one that was interesting to, no, this one.
This one here?
Yeah, that's the house on the adjoining lot behind.
At the close.
No, that's a house behind there
Right.
as well.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Looks like they're all talking to each other.
Here you got a container in front of each. The neighborhood a couple of people have mentioned that they live in is a neighborhood where the green arrows point out the current stub outs of an R10 neighborhood. And the following pictures that I'm going to show you are that neighborhood. These were taken recently. There are 50 homes in that development. Of the 50 homes in that development, in going through and looking at each and every one of them, I noticed 2 homes had trash or recycle containers out to the side of their homes, visible from the street, and 2 had them in their driveway. One of the 2 that had them in the driveway was in the process of remodeling because there were a lot of carpet scraps and so forth. Obviously, their garage was full of furniture so that they could lay new carpets. So we really had 3 trash out of 50 in this neighborhood. But this is typically what you're looking at in that vicinity. Someone mentioned the need for our aging population to have safer one-story, one-level homes. You'll notice not a lot of steps to get into them. These are things that we're going to be increasingly needing in our community. And, you know, so many of our homes in the McLaughlin neighborhood, while they're very nice homes, don't allow for elderly people to use them appropriately. Our own mayor has recently moved out into this general vicinity for that very reason. Beth cannot take the steps anymore.
Some of us are still spry.
Some of you are. There's a few of you are, but
Some of us can still handle this.
I just wanted to share those with you. But then I also wanted to address, you can see how nice some of these homes look. This was one of those stub outs that goes back into those areas.
Those previous pictures wouldn't happen to be, dare I say on the record, Icon Development? Wait, is that an Icon Development subdivision?
Could be.
Okay, just curious.
We'll have to ask the experts that.
Are any of these for sale?
What I wanted to address in terms of comments that were made, and I really don't anticipate that the traffic engineer from Portland would have the same familiarity with an intersection that I, as a resident in the area, have, using the intersection of Central Point and Warner Parrott multiple times per week. It's not the left turn, folks, off of Central Point onto Warner Parrott. Where they came up with that notion, and I know it's in our transportation safety plan, concept plan, there is only room for those cars turning right going toward the Danielson Mall area. There's room for 3 vehicles between Central Point's intersect and the traffic signal. And the volume on Warner Parrott going eastbound usually fills up all 3 of those slots. So that the people on Central Point are waiting an undue amount of time, and we frequently also have people coming eastbound on Warner Parrott blocking the intersection. So that once the light does change to green, you still don't have a chance of getting out. You can wait up to 15 cars and 3 light cycles just to get 1 vehicle out of Central Point northbound. Now, you've recently reviewed the South End Concept Plan figures and numbers, and while those are based on a different mode or type of traffic study, the numbers that were presented to you indicate that 15% of the volume in peak PM hours is anticipated to go over Partlow to Central Point and then north on Central Point. I'm sorry, we may be at a point today with Partlow and Central Point where it's not an issue. But as that area builds out, you're going to be looking at one horrendous traffic mess over in that area. So that's the one point I wanted to bring up. And you know, there's nobody that's more familiar with it than the people who are trapped in it all the time. As far as SDCs,
Tom, can you conclude your remarks?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just leave it at that.
Time to them, I guess, would be another way around it.
Beg pardon?
I said someone else who wants to testify could yield you their extra
Well,
time,
I'll
so
just-
you could have extra time.
I'll just cut it at that.
Tom,
Thank
can I
you.
ask you a question? I know we've gone over
Please.
time. I was reading this packet that was handed to us earlier, and you were talking about the stub outs, and you were saying that a developer had previously come before us and said that the proposed R6 as the adjoining stub outs were set at R6, and that it's hard to change from that. And you're saying because of this that these are R10 stub outs, and so
Well, if it holds true in one instance, does it not hold true in the other? I'm not a planner, so I don't know, but if that's a legitimate argument for development on Pease Road, where they wanted R8 rather than R6, because the area was being upzoned from R10 to R6, and the argument on the part of the developer was, oh, well, that's almost impossible to do because the adjoining stub outs are all R6. So we have to pretty well, it's predicated, you have to have R6.
So that's what you're suggesting, is
And
that
that's,
these are
you know,
R10, so they, okay. Thanks, I
don't
just
know.
wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. I'll let you look at the maps and make those decisions, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pete, can we get back to what was on the
Can I get
screen? It's
back
been changed
one
now.
of those for the record? Yeah.
Next, we'll have Miranda Horger and David, I apologize, I wasn't able to read the last name, Rostow.
I think you took those.
I think it's up there now. Is this the same thing now? that we have?
No, that's not the presentation.
Okay, Pete, can we get that map back up there now while we're all talking? Because people have it showing us where they live.
It's a coming. We can blame it on Tom.
Tom wiped the computer clean.
Okay, my name is Miranda Horger, and I live right here on this 1 acre lot.
Where was that again? Sorry.
19706 Central Point, right here on this big lot. So, my concern with changing the zoning is that I'm not opposed to changing, I'm not opposed to the zoning that there is. I think that R10 is the appropriate zoning for the location. And the reason I believe that is because we are on the very edge of the city. Here is incorporated, an unincorporated area right here. You almost can't get closer to the edge of the city. And I kind of agree with Denise, is the farther you go out, the concentration of density should be more towards city center. The further out you go, the more rural you're starting to get. You get right past here and you're looking at very large lots, very agricultural and rural. So changing the density to R6 from R10, you're almost doubling the amount of homes that you're putting in there from what is currently zoned, which is, I believe, as we said, an appropriate zoning. And somebody had mentioned earlier that the goal is to maintain the zoning where it's appropriate, and I can't imagine it being more appropriate here on the edge of the city. All of the goals that Peter was talking about for zoning are met with the R10. All of the streets, all of that is already met in the density zoning. At an R10, you're not increasing any benefit in development by changing to R6. You're actually decreasing the value of the neighborhood and the feel of the neighborhood. Those tiny yards mean lots of kids in the street. The developer was talking about this is what people want. I think that it's what the developer needs. That property, subject site right here, behind my house, it has the PGE right-of-way that goes through it, and it also has the nature overlay. How else would that property be valuable to them unless they pack the homes in? I mean, that's just a reality. All the benefits they're talking about is financial for them. And my concern is that those concerns are going to be what you guys are looking at. Because if you're looking at funds from building permits, this could be very, very desirable looking to you as potential money making. So my hope is that whatever you decide is going to be driven by the neighborhood, what's good for the neighborhood, and not what's good for the developer who might like to take this property on. It's already purchased this property with, you know, the hope of being able to change the zoning to get their money back out. I think that's it, just that you'll keep the best interest of the neighborhood in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a point of clarification, I can tell you that all of the commissioners have those same interests in mind that you're talking about.
I hope so. I'm really concerned that there was,
You
a
do-
recommendation to approve an R6 in this area.
You do understand, we're all volunteers on this commission, and none of us are working for the city. We're working for the citizens of the city. Thank you.
My name is David Rustin. I had my
Everybody
properties
knows
right
how to use a
here.
computer. That's great.
I've been here 37 years. What I was going to say is they've already said it.
Okay.
And then some. In fact, Commissioner McGriff had covered just about everything I was thinking. And including the prior plan to have some indication of what they're going to do, and they had none. And another thing I want to have in mind right here is we got Skellinger Wall. Here I did. Didn't I? I'm sorry, Peter.
He's the fix-it guy.
Keep clicking.
I think it's sensitive. Yeah, we find it.
Don't you wish we had just a nice board with a map on it?
I mean, like the old
Skellinger
days?
Way was going to come right out here into this project right here, and there's no indication of where that's going to go. So that's another problem we're going to have. Traffic, possibly, just like Partlow and McCord. And as far as that roundabout out there on Central Point Road, where it runs into Warner Parrott, we've been talking about that for the last 10 years. When this project over here was built, that was one of the big issues. And nothing has been done yet, and the previous guy to this lady was just here, he nailed it. You can wait, if you're, during a rush hour there, well, you can wait 15, 20 cars to get in there. And not only that, if you want to go down Lynn, that's in the far lane, these people coming north off of Warner Parrott, they don't comprehend you don't block the intersection. And you have to wait again to get over in that far lane to take a left. So anyway, if that's 6, R6 is going to be even more complicated. So thanks for your time, and I appreciate it.
Can you point out again
Sure.
where your house is? I was trying to follow the arrow when it disappeared.
Oh, where I live?
Yeah, where on the
Don't-
map?
don't click anything.
Don't
Just-
touch the
yeah.
button,
Leave the
just
button.
move it around.
Right there, 19530.
And you said
South Central Point Road.
you lived there 37 years?
I'm in my 37, yeah. Moved in there Memorial Day, 1977.
Okay, wow.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies, too.
Yeah, just one.
James Elting and Warren Carlson.
Copious notes tonight. I can tell.
I am James Elting, but I didn't ask to present anything other than what I expressed on the sign-up card.
Would
Something.
Okay.
Tony's gonna go check it out here.
Well, I'll just make something up. I'm opposed to this development in this form because that surrounding neighborhood and the compatibility are not complacent with each other because it's primarily at that larger zone rating at R10. And if you just pick out some small parcels and say, well, these are going to R6, why, other than the fact that you've somewhat frustrated the goals and ambitions of people who came into that larger neighborhood, it really isn't an R6 neighborhood. So any change you make to R6 would not be an effort in compatibility. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's where James lives, there.
What was it again?
Oh, I live right there, yeah.
Right there. See the arrow?
Across the street from the last person.
I'm Warren Carlson. I live at 19532 South Central Point Road, and I live right there.
Okay.
And I have a double whammy. I have the builders on this side and on this side. So I am a gentleman farmer. I have ducks, I have chickens, and I have roosters. And sometimes goats. Who said that? Who said that? Sometimes goats and sometimes pigs. And so far, I think it's unbeknownst to anybody here maybe that this little piece of land right here is county.
Yes.
And that's why I have the roosters. And if selfishness lets me know that an R6 would get me a lot more complaints than an R10. But that's not my reason. I think it should be kept compatible with this whole area, that and all the people I've talked to out there, the friends that we've had that have moved out here. I've been out here, neighbor to David Rustin there, for about 22 years. 26. I'm sorry, David. He's the mathematician between us. But now I dropped my train of thought.
Roosters.
Yeah, roosters. Yeah. No, but the compatibility of the R10 and why these people have moved out there. They left the town. They left the small lots. They moved out here because they liked the amount of land that they get. They're rural, and this whole area is rural. And R6 does not belong out here. R6 got in here, I don't know how, but it's pretty close to in town. But R6 doesn't even belong out here. And so, anyway, that's all I have to say, and thank you very much for your time.
Warren,
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I've not been in this area, so can you advise me? Is that gray strip that's there, is that a road that goes back to your house?
Very, very good. I was going to mention that. This strip right here, I am landlocked. Of all these county people here, I am landlocked. I have no way into my home but this, we call it Wheeler Tree Farm Road because it's not even named. It is a public road, but it's unmaintained. We maintain it ourselves.
Gravel?
Yeah, and the Wheelers maintain it. And my assumption is this black space is also that road right here, this black line.
Yeah.
And I assume that it runs, the red kind of got over into it because that's not considered part of the land that they bought. And if they develop there, or I don't know what they're going to do with this piece of land that's right here, and both David and I are very interested in picking it up if we can. If they don't keep it open, then they're going to have to build a road into me by itself.
Who owns that spot?
Huh?
Right? Who owns that? Is that part of that development?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not part of yours, or
I don't know yet. I think somebody could answer that question here. If that's just city land or what?
Warren, there's two roads there.
Hold on. We need people on the record.
Yeah, wait.
Excuse me. We need
to get on. Okay.
If you're going to be speaking, you need to be at the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Okay.
No, the other gentleman.
Oh, yeah.
If he's done, maybe he can join you up
Right.
there.
Well, let's.
Okay.
If
Anyway.
we can only have people at the lectern speaking, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, and so this road does concern me, and especially with the fact that if they're going to have access into any of this place here. They're going to have to come down that road. They're going to have to come off Skillinger and make it straight through here. And I don't know how that's going to happen, because they're going to lose this property here because it'll be undevelopable. It wouldn't be big enough. And well, maybe that's why they want 6, so they can do that. I don't know.
I know he's going to respond to that, but does that gravel area have a street name, or is it?
Pardon me?
That gravel area?
Yeah, it's gravel road.
He doesn't know, Tom. So.
It's unmaintained by this. Well, it used to be county, and I think the city has it now.
I was just trying to determine if you were a flag lot or that was
No,
considered
I am not as yet. But I would be if they took that land all the way up to where that red line is. Then I would need a road built in for me.
Okay, well, appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Let's not be soliciting speculation.
I was just curious
because
whether
we
you
don't-
have
we
the
don't know.
roosters
I was just
on a
trying to
timer.
understand the space.
But if he doesn't know, he doesn't
I
know.
think he has his own timer.
Has his own timer.
Because it could be 1, 2, or 6. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
The other gentleman.
Jim Kelly and Bruce Coe.
Good evening. My name is Jim Kelly. I live on Hazelnut, right off of Central Point. The 2 words I heard earlier I think are very important, and that is claustrophobic and compatibility. If anybody has seen Tugg's Landing, which is north of the picture you see in front of you, claustrophobic is just that. You can go down that street. I went down it during Thanksgiving weekend. You couldn't hardly drive down the street. I believe they are all 6. I'm not quite sure. But the houses do have a garage, very small. The driveway is very short. And in fact, if you go down that street at any time, the back bumper of the vehicles overhangs the sidewalks. Excuse me. We talked about kids playing, bicycling, walking, the like. You can't hardly do that at Tugg's Landing because the lots are so small. That also requires street parking. Where does everybody park? There isn't enough street parking. But wait a minute, isn't that where the kids are supposed to play? Pretty small lots. I also had goals and ambitions. I moved out here about 8 years ago, and moved to the edge of town. As this whole area is, you can see as far as the compatibility, it's all R8, it's all R10s. I don't see how R6 is even on the table as far as compatibility goes. R6 is not what you see in front of you. That is not why we moved here. I don't think that's why anybody in the surrounding areas has moved here and has stayed, as long as you've heard some that spoke earlier. I think the R6 is a bad idea. We go walking through the neighborhoods. People come to this area. They stay for long amounts of time. You've heard that earlier as well. You can't go walking through Tugg's Landing. There's too many cars. You can't hardly walk down the sidewalk. Bumpers are overhanging it. I saw the tongue of a boat trailer overhanging that. Again, the kids are the ones playing out in the streets. As far as you want to say that the compatibility is the same because it's all low density. Well, R8 and R10 is low density, but I think R6 is more borderline high density. You can see from the sizes of the lots. There is no yards, 2-story house. Sure, that is for a family, but where is the family going to go? Where are the families going to park? Where are the families going to play? What are they going to do during the holidays? The lots are way too small. The houses go up, but the yards get smaller. Where does everybody go? To the streets. That's where they go. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Brewster Coe. I live in Payson Farms. Where's it at? Well, anyway, I live in Payson Farms, and one of the reasons I bought my house was it was kind of a country setting. Even though I had a smaller lot, it was smaller than I was used to. My backyard, I got a Christmas tree farm. In fact, the same guy that owns that property is selling these others. Across the street, down the road, we got cows. And right next to there, we got some chickens and some geese and some goats. And, you know, it's a nice little area. We talk about rural, but we want to put R6 here? Why? Well, I mean, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't, you know, if it's rural, it's rural. It's not R6, at least R8. You know, it's going to be built regardless. I know that. But if we got to compromise, I don't see how R6 would be a compromise. R8, not R6. But all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the last person that I had signed up to speak.
Okay, and,
Yes,
okay.
just come on up. Give your paper to Tony. No, come.
Take a seat.
This is your time.
Just me?
Yes, just you.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Brian Zetlow. I live in Hazeldale Avenue. I live right here.
Okay.
Right about there. Okay, so I got a few things. Thanks for listening to me and the applicant. I overheard her mentioning something about her customers. Her customers were requesting or demanding, and what I've seen and how you'd mentioned demanding was high-density housing. High-density housing, growing up in the city, I grew up in Portland before I moved out here, was first-time home buyers. I can just about guarantee that everybody in the Hazel Creek farm is a second-time home buyer. So I don't want second-time home buyers to be discredited for having a larger lot. With that larger lot, my daughter, when I moved in there, I built my house from the ground up. I mean, I was physically out there for an entire year by myself building the house. And I'm kind of the nut, I guess, of the whole bunch because I'm also an artist. So I'm doing everything from woodworking to metal fabrications, and with that larger lot, I can actually get off the street. I can be in my garage. My garage just isn't storage. And Tug, I believe the one gentleman mentioned, if you walk by there, I feel sorry for the folks because their garages are their storage units, and they unfortunately do have to park their cars in the driveway. And if you guys Google right now, Tug, out of 36 homes, there's 7 cars on the street. Cars are the #1 contaminant to our city water. The runoff. Now, in my development, there's 97 homes, and if you Google it right now, there's only 3 cars that are on the street out of 97. Now, I'm kind of the hillbilly of the bunch. I got 5 cars. So, every one of my cars, there isn't one of them that's on the street. All of them are behind a gate, and I own a 1957 International milk truck. Now, that's kind of an eyesore for most, but no one can see it, because my lot's large enough. There's a lot of folks that are fortunate enough that live in my neighborhood that have RVs, they have boats. They don't have to pay for the storage. They're off the street because they have that extra lot. When I moved into my house, my daughter was 2 years old. And like I said, I thought it's a place that I was going to probably die because my wife and I, we designed the home and we built the home. In her backyard, my daughter's able to have a garden that she does 4-H with. She's able to have a swing set. She's able to have a playhouse. In that home, I've been able to throw my 20th wedding anniversary with my wife because it's large enough to accommodate a family function. People can park, people can mingle in our backyard, it's big enough. My father passed away a year ago. We were able to have my father's wake at my house. And now my mother is on 5 acres out above McIver Park. She can't maintain the property anymore. I've got room in my house, and I now can take care of my mother in that house. R6 housing doesn't accommodate for people that are growing their families. They need a place to go. And eventually they are going to grow out of those smaller homes because they are affordable homes. I kind of get passionate here. We're not taking into consideration the increase of traffic for our kids. I mean, I live in developed 97 homes. When I moved in there, every child in there was the age of 10. Some of the households, they have as many as 5 cars now. That because their kids are either going to college here and they're living there because the average age of kid moving out today is 30 plus years old. They've got to live with mom and dad. So that increased traffic that people are starting to see down at the end of the road is simply probably from our own neighborhood because of the amount of cars because our kids are growing up and they're driving and they're commuting in and out. So I've seen it just in the last 3 years, the increase. And the one gentleman said about the cars coming out, I've sat there for 8 minutes one time before I could pull out onto, off of Central Point onto Warner Parrott. 8 minutes, because I timed it because it was almost a novelty that I could not believe that it took me 8 minutes. I mean, I have to commute all the way to Hillsborough every day, and I'm used to traffic. I'm starting to, I make a joke that I'm starting to live next to Intel out there because of the traffic. Let's see, I know my time's just about up. Let's see, what else do I have here? Partlow. If you guys have probably heard, it's probably about every third month they have a radar that is being there because it's become a drag strip just because the amount of traffic that Partlow is experiencing. I mean, and it's unbelievable because there's police in the morning, and I leave my home about 4 in the morning. There's police parked there. There's police parked on Hazeldale Avenue now for traffic increase and the high speeds of traffic that is passing down there. And I think that's all I have for my notes. But that's all I have for now. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have any others? Do we want to have the applicant come back up?
Before the applicant comes back up, I had a question about who might have submitted these photographs.
I think those are from the Hazel Grove Westland Farms.
No? They went along with the petitions.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if they're from the, yeah, they
I
came with the
thought they
petition.
were, but I wasn't really sure. Is there somebody who would be interested in addressing this? Because I have a couple of questions about it.
Okay.
The difficulty is that with the
Just say your
fences
name
on,
again, Pat.
oh, Pat Ullman again.
Yeah.
The difficulty is with those offsets and the fences and the dip in the road from, as you're coming from Partlow onto Central Point or McCord onto Central Point, in either direction. I can't tell you how many times we commit to make the turn and boom, there's someone there. And we constantly, people pulling out in front of us as we're coming along because they can't see us when we come down Central Point. And so we submitted those as an illustration to go with the petitions. There were 158 names on the petitions.
Well, the only reason I had some questions about it is that when I did my site visit, I kind of went on some of these. I didn't have this yet when I did the site visit, but I was, I thought it was very interesting because I encountered this particular situation, and I was wondering if that was something that was pretty typical out in your area that
Exactly.
happens.
Typical.
And I went in the middle of the day, so it wasn't at either of the peaks. It was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I thought,
We're retired.
Yeah, you
We're
took-
never out there at the busy time.
yeah,
We've
you
had
took
a
some
lot of
pictures
years.
of a couple of things that I had observed, and I, didn't have my camera with me to do the same thing. But I appreciate that. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
I would just point out, too, you had some testimony about Tugg's Landing, while the points concerning driveway overhang and parking on the street, certainly consider, just to clarify, it is zoned R3.5.
And that is that the development that is in the brown over in the corner,
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
up there at the top
No,
edge,
Tugg's is on Central Point, closer to the intersection.
closer to the
Intersection
It's
of
not
Warner
shown
Warner
here.
Paramount,
Oh,
Melanie,
okay.
Reed
Just before
Lane.
you get to Central Point and.
So if you're going northbound, it's on your right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. So
Now it's
we want to hear from the applicant.
Rebuttal.
Hello again. So I began my.
Say your name for the record again.
This is still Mimi Dukas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I began my conversation with you saying that we wanted to talk about compatibility and how to address compatibility, and we were looking for some feedback from you on how to address that. You've heard from the community. Part of what I'm hearing from the community is obviously a passion for their homes and their lots, and they really love where they live. And I respect that, but they're arguing against that diversity of housing type. And not everybody is going to need the same type of house or the same type of lot that they do. I know that I would personally be overwhelmed trying to maintain a yard on a 10,000 square foot lot. There's just, people need different,
let her talk,
Oh,
please.
yeah.
Let's please respect the speaker. Thank you.
People need different things out of their homes and out of their property at different stages of their life. And a community has to consider all of those needs. And how you address it is up to a public debate. And that's part of what we're having tonight. We would still like to do R6. We would like some combination of R6. We're willing to work through what that looks like. So what I'm asking for tonight is some feedback from the commission on things you would like to see, advice, things like that. We would also like to go ahead and have a continuance. 4 weeks, I think, is probably a good amount of time for us to put on our thinking caps, sit down with staff, have some more conversations, and hopefully bring some more evidence back to you that will provide some satisfaction to some of your concerns and questions. So that's where we stand today, and of course we'll extend the 120-day clock to match that extension. That's certainly only fair.
Questions for the applicant? Bob?
Have you given any consideration to the possibility of CC&Rs in your whatever lot sizes or lot configurations you have? Because I heard that a 2.5-story building right up to a fence or a lot line is looking down on somebody's. You could.
Are you suggesting an HOA?
Can't hear
That's
you.
what are you suggesting a homeowners association?
Not necessarily,
Yeah.
but it can be put into the deeds as to housing types. It doesn't have to be single family 2.5-story buildings right up next to a single family 1-story building. But just I guess I'm asking you the question. Have you given any thought to that, or is that a possibility?
I would say it's more than a possibility. I would say it's a probability. The vast majority of subdivisions that we do in this day and age, they've got common elements. There's water quality facilities, there's parks, there's open space, there's things that need to be maintained, and the best way that we can do that is through a homeowners association. And frankly, the community has better long-term value if we have those CC&Rs in place, so our buyers actually prefer them. So yes, that's more than a possibility, it's a probability. I did want to talk about the setbacks in the zones. There's been some conversation about what the setbacks are between the R10 and the R8 and the R6. And staff pointed out they all have the same rear setback of 20 feet. They all have a garage setback of 20 feet to avoid any of that car overhang issue. What changes more substantially, well, not even substantially, what changes is your side yard setbacks. So the combination of you have offset side yard setbacks, so they're different on one side versus the other. So in R10, it's 10 foot on one side and 8 foot on the other. So you have a combined 18-foot side yard setback. In the R8, you have 16 feet. And in the R6, you have 14 feet. So R6 has a 9-foot side yard setback and a 5-foot side yard setback. You've got 14 feet between your homes. So it's not quite as dramatic as I think some of the testimony led to believe. And the front yard setback does shrink down from R10 to R6, but the garage setback does not. So the front setback for the non-garage portion of the lot for R10 is 20 feet in the R10, it's 15 feet in the R8, and it's 10 feet in the R6. But front of a house sticking out 10 feet in front of the garage is a little odd, but
When you look at a piece of property like this, before you sign on a dotted line, you're looking at financial success with this. Is this going to pencil out? Is it going to make us any money? And that's fine. That's fine with me. I would too.
Right.
But what consideration have you given to how it would look financially at an R8?
you know, like I said, the real estate contract changes depending on the zoning, and I still think some combination of zones probably makes the most sense. We haven't crunched the numbers. We haven't done the layouts for every single permutation that's out there. I'm sure we can figure something out, but we're trying to find. We're real estate developers. We have a customer that is saying what they want, and we're trying to provide it. And you have the right to say no, but if our customers are saying it, those are the people either of Oregon City or the future residents of Oregon City that are saying there's a housing type that they want. And if you don't provide it here, then
we've got 35,000 customers ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out how to satisfy them.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Do we have other questions for the applicant?
Nope.
Any other
All I want to
advice?
say is that I think that there's kind of a bimodal need for housing that I see is the starter type housing that you're proposing on our 6 lots. And on that vein, I would suggest that if you are really thinking about pursuing R6, I would look at some of the more model, older style subdivision styles. I don't know if we allow alleys or other kinds of amenities that make neighborhoods more interesting. But that might be something that you want to consider. You might want to go over to the first edition over in Lake Oswego to see what kind of a neighborhood that looks like, because that is actually an R5. And all those houses are very nice. The neighborhoods are nice. It's a very cohesive place. The houses there range anywhere from $250,000 at the low end to beyond $1 million, and they're on 5,000 square foot lots. The other tier I see is aging in place style houses, which are single level, well appointed, good, nice homes with yards, small yards, but with yards nonetheless. And I think that there's a real strong interest in that. So what I would want to see is, I hear a lot of, there's a lot of people that want to have this kind of home or that kind of home, but I would like to see maybe a sincere effort at looking at the market need for this other kind of home, the aging in place type home. Maybe the lots are a little bit bigger, but maybe you have a little bit of a higher end home that folks out here might be interested in. Just a thought.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No, sir.
Okay. So at this point, we're looking at
I believe that's what I heard at the first
Continuance.
evidentiary hearing. There was a request for the continuance, so we just need to set a date.
So there was somebody in the back, I don't know if, I was just telling Charles that they wanted to say something again, and I don't have any objection, but it's up to the rest of the commission, I guess.
I have no problem with that.
What do they look like? I might have a problem with the look.
Bob, I think he looks okay.
He's okay?
if
Come
you
on
want
up.
to speak, come on up.
Yeah, my name is Brewster Coe, and she was talking about her clients and how they want the 6,000 zone, lots. And anytime one of our houses go up and we're in the R8, they sell 6 months or less. There was only one that stayed for any length of time, and I believe they were asking way above what the price would allow for, and I think it was only because they didn't want to sell the home. I don't know what it eventually sold for. So I don't know why she says her clients, I guess she's not doing her research if our houses can sell that fast. That's
Okay.
all I got to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
She can rebut that, I guess.
The applicant was asking for a little bit of direction and guidance from the commission. Does anybody have anything they want to suggest for the applicant at this point?
I've already said what I would said.
Okay.
So
I think Paul said what I was thinking, and it's already been said.
Yeah.
I would like to say one other
Sure,
thing,
go
just
ahead,
for her consideration, that we, this is a confusing site to me. You got 2 separate pieces of property there, and how would you apply conventional design situation there that's compatible with the neighborhood is beyond me. But what I would like to hear the applicant to consider is a possibility of going to an R8.
It's not the right.
We're in a situation here, folks, where we got the state to contend with, along with Metro and our goals, and the future of this city versus the immediate decision to be made regarding your neighborhood, and whether the two can come together and be compatible, which is the operative word tonight, is a real challenge to this commission. So I'm looking for some options here where we can bring both sides together and have some agreement. And I think that one of them would be to consider seriously an R8 density versus an R6. That's pretty much what I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just add one comment, just my observation, having heard all the testimony and looking at the site. The one thing that I would just kind of chime in on what Bob said, you've got two pieces of property that are not contiguous. They're not even touching each other. It's difficult for me to see, especially the one that's disconnected from the R8 being anything but an R10. That just is hard for me to see that. The site that's connected to the R8 seems that it could be very appropriately zoned as an R8, but it's very difficult for me to see both of those sites being in an R6, and it would be a real stretch to see the one that's disconnected from the R8 as an island being an R6. It would just appear on the surface to me that this would be a presumptuous effort to assume R6 zoning for the future area that's surrounding these two sites. And I think that may be taking a presumptive attitude about future development and zoning. So my point of view at this time, absent any additional evidence, is that I would have a hard time supporting R6 for either of those sites, but especially the one that is completely disconnected from the R8.
Can we, I know the record is still open, can we close the public hearing?
Are you going to, they've requested it first?
I understand, but I want to close this public hearing so we can chat.
No, you still have evidence to collect. And
We still have
this
evidence
is
to collect?
all
Cannot
open
close.
still.
But I said, that's what I was asking, is the record is still open.
You can't deliberate because you don't have
No,
all
no,
the
I
evidence.
wasn't saying I was deliberating.
Oh.
I was just saying I wanted to have some additional, if the commission is not allowed to have additional discussion, then I'm going to move that we continue this.
Right.
Because
Yeah, I think
I'm not feeling comfortable with having
I
further
think
discussion with the record still being open and the public hearing still being open.
Right. At this point, the applicant asked
Yes.
us if we wanted to give them feedback. I think
Yeah.
we've all done
And you
that.
did.
And at this point, I think we ought to entertain the motion to continue the hearing.
May I ask, what do you mean that not all the evidence is in because of what she might bring back?
What other people might bring forward during the public hearing. Now that Denise has clarified what she was saying, I think she made a correct move.
Yes. Thank you for helping.
Do we have a date certain?
She said
Zero out right
3-4
now.
weeks, but it's President's
All right.
weekend, and I don't believe the city's open that day. But I was looking at my calendar. I guess my question is, before I make the official motion, Tony, is that I know in the next, we have a lot on our plate, a lot.
I think we're looking at March 10th, and,
And
that's where you continued the last zone change. So those two zone changes on
And
the
I have
same night,
concerns
plus
about-
anything else that slips. We also have a couple work sessions before that, so
That's
it'll be a
what I
long day.
was. That's what I was remembering, and I just wanted to make sure that I want to be fair to everybody, and I don't want to feel like we're cramming a bunch of stuff in when we're good, we're busy, but we're not too busy for you.
I think we can. So March 10th?
Okay, I would move that, based on the recommendation from the Planning Community Development Director, that I would move that we continue this application, which I should probably say all the right names and everything, to March 10th.
I second it.
And sorry, public, that you're not going to get your decision tonight.
But you still have time to do more input.
So Tony, did you extend it out further than the 4 weeks that was requested by that?
Yes.
Because of scheduling.
And is the applicant acceptable and willing to waive the 120 days for?
She already said
Thank
that
you.
on the record.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
4
Extend.
weeks officially doesn't, because we only meet on the 2nd and whatever, but anyway.
I missed the second on that. Who was?
Tom.
Commissioner Espy.
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney.
Aye.
Commissioner Guile.
Aye.
Commissioner McGriff.
Aye.
Chair Kidwell.
Aye.
Motion carries. Zone change 1303 will be heard on March 10th, 2014. The record remains open.
Very good.
So we're meeting on the 10th and the 24th, correct? And our plates are full?
Getting there.
Because I was thinking if we could do it on the 24th, we can get it done. Oh, sorry.
I'm in Canada.
So that's it. Thank
Okay.
you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it.
So, Tony, we have communications. Who's doing that?
It's not me, it's that one. They were laughing.
The only communication I have tonight, we held our partners group meeting for the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, and you may recall the partners group is 2 electeds and the chief administrator officer for each of our partners, the county, metro, the state, and the trustee, as well as Liam Thornton from Langley Development was in attendance this morning. And so we presented them with the work that we've done to date, the concepts for the land use framework plan. Do you want me to hold for
Yeah,
a minute?
why don't you hold for just a few minutes and let them all,
Hey, Pete, can we try and get folks out? Yeah.
you might just tell them we're still having a meeting.
While we're holding for a moment, Tony, do you know if there's going to be any group rides down on February 6th to that event?
Group? I do not.
I mean,
I don't.
I'm
Okay.
planning on going.
Well, you're already down there, aren't you?
No.
Really?
I'm retired.
I'd like to go to it, but
I don't, nope, I have 3 seats available and nobody has claimed all my seats. So if you're interested in riding down with me, I would be happy to work that out with you.
I will go.
Okay.
We gave the partners group a presentation on the framework master plan, and explained to them the difference between the land use product and the strategic document. We had a good conversation on the strategic document, talking about multiple funding options. Really what that document is trying to show is the importance of the partnership in the long-term success of the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, as well as trying to identify funding sources that are available, philanthropic, local grants, federal, state, as well as the options that are available to local jurisdictions, the county, metro, and the state. When you start looking at taxing opportunities, hotel tax, and some of those exist already, tax equipment financing. So it's really laying out all the tools that are available, and we'll continue to build on that. Our ultimate goal is that we would have all the partners adopt that by resolution at some time, probably in late summer, showing support for the plan as well as the strategic plan to move forward.
So question, has the bankruptcy trustee accepted the offer as of yet, or they're still
negotiating.
doing the
So
dance?
the
Okay.
bankruptcy court has approved the content of it, which is essentially they have 2 years to close. If they close within the first year, it's $4.9 million. If they close in 2 years, it's $5.75 million. Essentially, they owe $360,000 on February 1st, and then an additional $360,000 a year later. They have multiple outs for any reason along the way. And then the trustee, as of February 1st, is allowed to draw $30,000 a month for operating costs of the property. To date, the contract has not been signed nor earnest money put up.
So no money on the table yet?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Yep.
But
And so
pending money?
I'm sorry?
Possible pending money?
Pending, correct.
Pending.
Liam Thornton from Langley Development was actually, he passed along that he believes that the work that the partners have been doing to date has been very helpful in terms of providing some clarity and certainty to deal with the entitlement process, which only helps to move this more towards the potential of private side investment in the property, taking away that unknown, which carries a very big risk with it when you don't know the zoning of a property. But it is complicated property, but they do believe that the direction that the partners have been moving in terms of the concept plan and the strategic plan have been helpful in providing some clarity and certainty around the property and the potential uses of the property. So that was well received by the other partners. And we also asked for essentially the consensus as to the direction we're heading, and we had unanimous consensus in terms of the direction we were heading and to continue working towards the goals that we described. The second would be we have the Keene event, the Champion Building Celebration, up at the Keene facility on Thursday, February 6th, 5:30 to 8 o'clock. Folks it's also coordinated with First Thursday, the art walk that'll happen up in the Pearl. This is open to the public. We would ask, if you do have the opportunity, you can visit rediscoverthefalls.com, our website, and right at the bottom of the top of the page is an RSVP. Go ahead and click on
That's what I was
that.
just going to ask you, because the email I got was forwarded, so I couldn't click
Hit
on
the click.
click on the
So
button.
you can just go to rediscoverthefalls.com, and there's an RSVP button on there. And if you don't RSVP and you'd like to come, please do. But it's more for us to just help with the logistics, so we'll get a somewhat accurate count. It'd be great. Planning commissioners have been involved. Get the word out. Invite folks. It'd be wonderful. It's really important, I think, I believe that for the majority, there seems to be consensus in Oregon City and from our residents and from our elected officials and our committees on the direction that we're heading. But, we need to take this out and build that regional and state support for this. And we believe that, this opportunity is, of course, significant to Oregon City, but we believe it's significant for the state. This resource that's available here and what could potentially happen here, we believe is a benefit to the whole state.
Have you gotten any signals from the county? I know it's kind of a mixed bag politically there. And
Well, we have
it's real crazy about transportation, so I'm just kind of wondering.
So we have Commissioner Smith and Schrader as our partners at the Partners Group, and their staff have been involved with us throughout the process.
Awesome.
Yeah, so at this point, we seem to be addressing the concerns that are raised and trying to build an understanding of what the options are, what we're trying to accomplish, and they've been on board.
So are we going to have those fabulous Planning Commission T-shirts to wear to the event on Thursday?
Fabulous Planning Commission T-shirts.
Yeah, don't you remember?
Am I not aware?
Don't you remember that?
Oh, no.
I don't. Did I block it out of my mind?
Yes,
Okay.
you did. That's all right. You probably just forgot all about
Okay.
it. We were joking months ago that we were going to have all these official Planning Commission T-shirts when we showed up at the thing.
It must have slipped my mind.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's all right. We know you've been very, very busy, but I can see Bob is disappointed, so I'm sorry, Bob. I tried.
I got a T-shirt that says "I'm with stupid." That's the one my wife gave me.
Don't wear that around.
She wears it.
And so we're still on track to submit the land use application probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks with first Planning Commission hearing for April 21st. We will be coming back to you for a couple work sessions along the way.
Okay.
So that's really the main update that I had tonight.
I'm RSVPing, so if you're going to give us those dates again, because I think I have all of them in my computer here.
Tony, while we're at it, sorry, and it's not in my head, but what are the dates of the next two Planning Commission meetings?
2nd and 4th, Monday.
Planning Commission.
Yes,
March.
2nd and
I'm just wondering what the fourth Monday is.
March 10th and March 24th.
No, in February, I'm sorry.
Oh, February. I think it's, I'm sorry, I was off a month. I think it's February 10th, February 24th.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the 10th is the same as March, because we
the
only
20
28 days. Yeah.
Only because I'm having surgery on the 20th, and I don't know if I can make the 24th or not.
Yeah, we have February 10th, February 24th.
Okay.
Commissioners, do you think we should excuse him because he's having surgery, or should we make him drag himself out of
Depends on what kind of surgery it is.
Yeah, I
Some
think he should
people will
drag.
just
Yeah,
use
do
any
anything to get
excuse.
out of stuff. It's just embarrassing.
What room number is it?
Well, how about we have the meeting in your room?
There you go.
That's it.
It's in and out, I think, but it's the eye that'll be covered. I won't be able to see things.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I guess we might have to let him off.
Any vital organs less than 1.5 pounds, you have to show.
We are scheduling Willamette Falls Legacy Project work session February 10th, and then Planning Commission work session March 10th, which are the nights of the hearing. So those will be held prior to the 7 o'clock start.
Okay, I just RSVP'd.
Okay. Very good. Is that it, Tony?
That is all that I have at this
Okay,
point.
yeah, so you said we have the work session on the 10th, and then our regular meeting at 7 o'clock. You got that down, Tom?
Looking for.
He's looking for a pad.
Okay, say it again. February 10th.
February 10th, we have a work session at 6.
6 o'clock for the work
6
session.
o'clock?
Okay. Okay. I would entertain a motion to be adjourned.
Second and fourth
Okay.
Mondays. Adjourned.
Adjourned.